Double Fine, in tandem with our third-party production team, will be remastering your classic adventure game, Grim Fandango.
One of the surprise announcements at Sony's E3 conference this year was that Grim Fandango is going to be coming to PS4 and PS Vita. Now, I've seen a lot of people on the internet asking what Grim Fandango is and exactly why people are excited that it's being remade. So I thought I'd make this video to explain what it is that was special about Grim Fandango and why it's good that we're going to get to play it again on PS4 and PS Vita. So Grim Fandango originally came out for PC back in 1998. It was headed up by Tim Schafer, who people will probably be familiar with from Double Fine, who most recently made Broken Age. But he also had a history of LucasArts, who released Grim Fandango, so he was involved in the Monkey Island series, he made Day of the Tentacle, Full Throttle. Grim Fandango is not a point and click per se, but it is very much in that lineage of puzzle adventure games. Now, to give a brief setup of the world in which Grim Fandango is set, it takes place in the land of the dead, which is basically a limbo type place between the land of the living and the afterlife proper. You play as Manuel Calavera, or Manny as he's normally referred to in the game. He is a Grim Reaper, which in this world means he's effectively a travel agent. When people die, depending on how well they've lived their life, they're able to buy a package to get them to the afterlife. If they lived a good life, they can buy a better package, getting a fast train or something similar to get to the afterlife quickly. If they're on the other end of the spectrum, then they've got to walk a journey that can take many years and be very dangerous. Now, I won't obviously spoil the story itself for you, but suffice to say, events lead to Manny having to undertake a perilous journey across that world towards the place which gets you to the afterlife. But what is it that people love so much about Grim Fandango? Well, one of the big things that the game was praised a lot for at the time was the art direction. It's got strong Central and South American influence, which you can see in the narrative and the way the world is set up. Also in things like the design of the characters. The characters themselves look like calacha figures from the Mexican Day of the Dead festival. There's also a strong noir influence there, and you can see that in the narratives, the characters, even the soundtrack of the game. I think that's one of the things that people really like about it, the way these two different styles have been taken and mashed together to create a really unique world. And again, the whole tone of the game feels very unique and special. And maybe it will look a bit shoddy to modern eyes, but again, the art direction I think still shines through, and that's hopefully something that's going to look even better when Grim Fandango ultimately comes out on PS4 and PS Vita.
Yeah.
Now, something else that was unique about Grim Fandango was the fact that it takes place over 4 years. Now, obviously, you don't live out those whole 4 years. The game does skip between time periods. Now, having the game take place over a long time period was interesting for a number of reasons. And for one thing, it lets you see a lot of different parts of the world. And while Grim Fandango is probably relatively small compared to modern games, because you see different parts of the world, you do get a real sense of the place. Also, you get to see Manny in a whole load of different situations, different points of his life. So you see him right at the beginning as a travel agent. There's a section where he's almost a big shot casino owner in the middle of the game. And by the end of the game, there's a real sense that you spent a long time with Manny and the other characters in the game. And combined with Tim Schafer's writing ability, I think that's one of the big reasons that people are so fond of this game. So why is it a good thing that Grim Fandango is being remade for PS4 and PS Vita? Well, for one thing, the game didn't sell particularly well, despite the fact that it was critically acclaimed and has a strong cult following almost. And there are all sorts of reasons for that, but to not go into too fine a detail, I mean, Grim Fandango came out at a time when adventure games, point and clicks, were struggling, and Grim Fandango is kind of seen as marking that point of the death of the adventure game, whether you agree that adventure games really did die at that time or not. It didn't sell particularly well, so it's good that it's coming back and that people are going to get a chance to play a game that deserves to be played. And if you missed out somewhat on the classic adventure games, you know, the Monkey Island and so on that are so often referenced, and Grim Fandango is a game that really came towards the tail end of that movement, and it's seen by some as the greatest example of that style of game from that era. So I think it's a really good entry point for people who want to see what all the fuss was about with LucasArts point and clicks. Now, I've mentioned the strength of the art direction when it comes to Grim Fandango, so a touched up version of the game sounds pretty good to me. If they can get that game looking as nice as I'm sure they can on new consoles, then with that art direction it's really going to shine through. Also, there are weaknesses to the game, particularly in the way it controls. People had a lot of problems just getting in and out of doors and elevators, interacting with the item that they want to interact with. I mean, sometimes when you're controlling Manny, you could be forgiven for thinking you're controlling something else entirely. So if they can sort out the controls, get Grim Fandango spruced up, looking nice, then hopefully we'll end up with a definitive version of a classic game. And hopefully I've explained to you why it is that people are excited about it. And when it comes out, I genuinely hope that it can speak for itself as to why it's such a great game.